This is Radio Romania International. You are listening to our one-hour broadcast in English for listeners in Western Europe and Africa. We can also be heard on the internet at www.rri.ro, Channel 1. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and other social media platforms. Our programs are also available on TuneIn and via satellite Eutelsat 16A on 11,512 MHz vertical polarization, azimuth 16 degrees east, symbol rate 29,950 megasymbols per second, standard DVB as2, modulation 8 PSK, audio PID 510. We wish you good reception conditions.
You are listening to the news on Radio Romania International. I am Vlad Palcu. In the lineup today, Bucharest authorities have adopted a mechanism for the centralized purchase of electricity designed to protect consumers and the economy as a whole. Romania's President Klaus Iohannis is attending the 5th edition of the Peace Forum in Paris. And the annual inflation rate has dropped to 15.32% in October from 15.88% in September. The government on Friday passed an emergency decree capping centralized purchases of electricity at some €90 per megawatt. The government thus wants to protect end users and the economy as a whole. Prime Minister Nicolae Ciucă explained that electricity prices are capped at 0.68 lei for household users with a total monthly consumption under 100 kilowatts, at 0.80 lei for household users with a total consumption between 100 and 255 kilowatts per month, and at 1 leu for SMEs. Parliament will also pass a number of amendments whereby electricity prices will be set at 1.3 lei for large energy consumers. Household users with electricity consumption above 255 kilowatts are also targeted by this measure, although the price for the first 255 kilowatts will be 0.80 lei. The provisions are temporary and apply starting next year until March 31st, 2025. Paris plays host to the 5th edition of the Peace Forum. Amidst multiple crises, the forum this year focuses on hot topics on the global agenda, such as geopolitical conflicts with global effects, the growing impact of climate change, the waves of COVID pandemic, and growing social inequality. Representing Romania will be President Klaus Iohannis, who will address the consequences of the Russian aggression in Ukraine on European and global security, as well as in a number of fields, as well as the impact of the war on post-pandemic recovery efforts and other global priorities, such as combating climate change. The European Commission has upgraded its forecast on Romanian economic growth this year from 3.9% in July to 5.8% this autumn. After a solid 2022, Romanian economy is expected to slow down by 2% in the following years due to soaring inflation, the difficult financial context, and the economic fallout from the war in Ukraine. According to the Commission, inflation is expected to peak at the end of 2022 and remain high over the course of 2023, before starting to drop in 2024. On Friday, the National Statistics Institute announced that the annual inflation rate dropped to 15.32% in October from 15.88% in September, considering that prices for foodstuffs went up by 20.58%, while prices for non-food products increased by 14.37%. Prices for services also went up by 8.31%. The fourth checkpoint on the Romanian-Ukrainian border was opened on Thursday in a ceremony attended by the Prime Ministers of Romania and Ukraine, Nicolae Ciucă and Denis Shmyhal, respectively. The new checkpoint, Vicovu de Sus, Krasnoilsk, will help facilitate the transit of people and goods between the two states. This is the first checkpoint to open since the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine on February 24th. Since then, some 2.8 million Ukrainians have entered Romania, most of whom were en route to Western Europe. A few thousand filed for and received asylum in Romania, benefiting from every right under the Romanian law. Some 70,000 Ukrainians now have stay permits. School violence is high on the agenda for talks hosted by the Education Ministry in Bucharest with representatives of school inspectorates and social workers in the education system. The debate is expected to continue early next week, involving members of NGOs. The ministry will analyze proposals to improve the legal framework in this field and increase the level of security of students and teaching staff. Another priority is to identify schooling units that are particularly exposed to acts of violence. The Ministry of the Interior will also conduct actions with a view to preventing and combating acts of violence and supporting victims of school violence. The Ministry of Education launched a video as part of its awareness-raising campaign, criticizing the repeated acts of violence in schools across Romania over the recent years. And that was the news on Radio Romania International.